Two readings this morning. The first is from Isaiah, chapter 25, verses 6 to 8. On this mountain, the Lord Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples, a banquet of aged wine, the best of meats and the finest of wines. On this mountain, he will destroy the shroud that enfolds all peoples, the sheet that covers all nations. He will swallow up death forever. The sovereign Lord will wipe away the tears from all faces. He will remove his people's disgrace. From all the earth, the Lord has spoken. And our second reading is from John chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied. "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you've saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples, and there they stayed for a few days. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. So, there's a party, a wedding party. The whole village is invited, and it has to go well. The reputation of the family depends on it, and actually, the future of the whole marriage could depend on it. A bad party, a bad wedding, would heap shame on the family and bring bad luck for the future. And it's all going great until tragedy strikes. Urgent whispers begin to circulate from the servants to the bride and groom's parents. There's no more wine. It's hard for us to grasp the panic, although perhaps not for Rosie. It is. It's hard for us to grasp the panic because we would just send out for some more, right? We'd find the most sober person and send them to the co-op. That's what we would do. But that wasn't possible here. This was a disaster. Jesus' mother hears the whispers. She knows that Jesus can do something about this. She knows he can fix this situation. And I wonder how she knows. Is it the words of the angels back when they announced her pregnancy? Is that still ringing in her ears? Is it all those things that Luke tells us she treasures up in her heart? Is it the way she watched him grow up? Maybe she's used to seeing how he can make a meager meal stretch to feed unexpected guests. Maybe she's seen the way that God's power is on him in such a special way. Either way, we can imagine she goes up to him, she takes him by the arm, she whispers in his ear, gives him a little nudge. Then she goes to the servants, saying to them, "Do whatever he tells you." And Jesus isn't all that happy about it. He says to her, "Why are you involving me? My time hasn't come." And his reticence to push himself forward is quite comforting to somebody like me. Maybe it is to you as well. How many of us, when faced with a moment when we can step up to the plate and make a difference, or we can shrink back in the shadows and keep ourselves to ourselves, how many of us would infinitely prefer the latter over the former? How many of us, when God asks us to take a stand or asks us to try something new, are tempted to say, "Not now. God. Not now. Or surely not me. He's in good company. We're in good company, of course. The accounts of Moses and Elijah and Jonah, they tell a similar story. And Jesus, too, at this moment, isn't sure he's ready for his public ministry to begin. Maybe he was just wanting to mind his own business, enjoy the wedding. Maybe he was aware that this would not be an easy road. Nevertheless, either out of respect for his mother or because he realizes she might be right, he speaks to the servants and he tells them to fill the stone jars with water. Maybe because the compassion that we see in him time and time again rises up within him as he sees what a disaster this could be for the family. And he realizes, yeah, I can make this right. And the servants fill the jars with water, no doubt wondering what on earth this crazy woman is on about, making them do what Jesus says, wondering what, except a broken back, all this is going to achieve. We don't want water right now, woman. What are we doing what this man tells us to for? And it isn't just a coincidence, of course, that these jars, which he tells them to use, are normally for Jewish purification rituals. This miracle is rich with symbolism. Here he shows us and them that the new thing he is doing, the purification which he will bring, will be in and through his own work, his own action, taking the ritual and legalism of the law and turning it into grace, freely poured out for the world, just as the water becomes wine in the jar. And of course, before long, the party is back in full swing, with the wine being enjoyed by all, and not just any old wine, but the best wine, better than the first batch, which would of course be madness for any sensible host. Why bring out the best wine when all the people are too drunk to notice whether it's any good? Well, of course, because Jesus is in the business of bringing life in all its fullness. That's why. Because Jesus is sharing with them the abundance, the blessing, and the extravagance of the kingdom. And of course, because this is a foretaste of the great wedding to which we are all invited in heaven, to that amazing banquet where there will be no end to the feasting and the partying. And not in a gluttonous way, but because there will be so much to celebrate because of the amazing grace of our God. That passage which James read for us from Isaiah 25 is the first time in the Bible we hear about this heavenly banquet. It says, "On this mountain the Lord Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples, a banquet of aged wine, the best of meats, the finest of wines. On this mountain he will destroy the shroud that enfolds all peoples, the sheet that covers all nations. He will swallow up death forever. The sovereign Lord will wipe away the tears from all faces. He will remove his people's disgrace from all the earth." How great is that? And in the context of the loss that we are all feeling just now, it's so good to remember that wonderful things are prepared for us when we go to be with God. It's so good to give thanks and to rejoice that because of Jesus' death is absolutely not the end, that his outrageous grace extends to every one of us who accepts his invitation to come, to feast, and to worship. He's going to wipe the tears from all faces, remove our disgrace, and swallow up death forever. This is the abundance, the blessing, and the extravagance of our God. And I don't know how you're feeling this week. There's so much uncertainty in the world. There's so much sadness. Let's be people who hold on, not just to the lovely story, oh, isn't it nice, Jesus turned the water into wine. But let's be people who know the truth, who understand the deeper significance of this sign that Jesus was showing in this moment, that he was the one they were waiting for, the one who was going to pour out the abundant mercy and grace of God for eternity. And in the meantime, it does us good, I think, to hear the words of Mary one more time. John chapter 2 and verse 5 says, Jesus' mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." If the servants hadn't done whatever Jesus told them, the miracle couldn't have happened as it did. They had to play their part. They had to be obedient. So what is God asking of us now? How is he asking us to be obedient? Because it seems to me that this miracle shows us that the transformation comes after the obedience, right? And maybe our obedience doesn't see water turning into wine, but maybe it sees lives transformed, situations transformed, hope, joy, and peace where there was none, freedom and wholeness and healing and life, life in all its fullness. John tells us that it was through this miracle, this first sign, as he calls them, that Jesus revealed his glory and his disciples believed in him. Wouldn't it be great if we would be confronted more and more with the glory and the beauty and the grace of God? Wouldn't it be amazing to see the power of God displayed in all sorts of ways amongst us, around us, through us? Here in John 2, that came when the servants did as Jesus told them. We're going to see over the next few months as we work our way through these signs that each of the signs are moments when, in the words of Tom Wright, heaven is opened and the transforming power of God's love bursts in to the present world. I'm going to say that again. Heaven is opened and the transforming power of God's love bursts in on the present world. I don't know about you. I would love to see more of that. And then this miracle shows us that amazing things happen when someone takes seriously the words, "Do whatever he tells you."